We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Gimel Amid Beis Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 43b. This Daf is sponsored by Shalom ben Noim in memory of Moshe Leo ben David. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amid or a Daf, see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amid, the Gemara brought a Braisa which brought the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon holds that the mitzvah of tzitzis is a mitzvah saseh shehazman grama. The reason why it's a mitzvah saseh shehazman grama, a positive commandment that's time bound, is because it does not apply at night. And the Gemara said in the previous Amud that according to Rabbi Shimon, he darshans uri isam oso, that one sees the tzitzis, that comes to exclude a ksos laila, a garment of the night, and asher techasaba, that's an inclusion, that comes to include a ksos suma, a garment of the blind. Now the Rabbanan, they hold that even a ksos laila that is not excluded, they hold that it's a mitzvah saseh shelo azman grama, she'en azman grama. And the Gemara now continues and asks, according to the Rabbanan, hay asher techasaba, this pasuk of asher techasaba, which is an inclusion according to Rabbi Shimon, but my avdilei, what do the Rabbanan do with that pasuk? They don't need to include a ksus suma because they don't even exclude a ksus laila. Rashi explains, hay asher techasaba, my avdilei, what do they do with the pasuk of asher techasaba? L'rabos ksus suma lo itzrich. It's not needed according to the Rabbanan to include a ksus suma, the hashta, because now maksus laila mechayiv, if a ksus laila is obligated in tzitzis, kol shekein ksus suma, certainly a ksus suma, the garment of the blind should be included, the yeshna bari eitz la'acherim, because that can be seen by others, and so therefore again, my avdilei, what do they do with this asher techasaba? And the Gemara continues and answers me, boy, who they need this pasuk of asher techasaba l'chidetanya for what is taught in the following brisa. The pasuk says, this is the brisa, the pasuk says, al arba kanfos kesuscha, it says on the four corners of your garment, arba velo shalosh, so we understand it has to be a four-cornered garment to be obligated in tzitzis, and not a three-cornered garment. Rashi explains, velo gimel the talis balas gimel petura, talis that just has three corners is exempt. And the brisa continues, ata omer arba, now you're saying arba velo shalosh, you're saying four to exclude three and not three. Oeno ela arba velo chamesh, maybe it's four and not five, maybe it's to exclude a garment that has five corners. How do you know it's excluding a garment with three corners? And the brisa continues, Kashu Omer Asher Techasaba, when it says in the pasuk Asher Techasaba, Hare Balas Chamesh Omer. So that's including Balas Chamesh, and so therefore we understand if it has five corners, it is in fact included in the obligation. Umani Mekayim Al Arba, and so what do I do with this pasuk of Al Arba Kanfos Kesuscha? What do we do with Al Arba? Arba Velo Shalosh, like we said, it means to say four and not three. We're excluding three. And the brisa continues, Umar Risa L'Ravos Balas Chamesh L'Hotzi Balas Shalosh. Now, why do you see fit to include a five-cornered garment and to exclude a three-cornered garment? Marbani Balas Chamesh, we include a five-cornered garment, Sheyesh Bechlal Chamesh Arba, because included in five, you also have four. Every five-cornered garment also has four corners. Umotziani Balas Shalosh, and I exclude a garment with three corners, She'ein Bechlal Shalosh Arba, included in three, we do not have four, and so that's how I choose what to include and what to exclude. And so you see again from this Asher Techasaba, the same pasuk is being brought in this brisa. That's what the Rabbanan are using. They're using this pasuk of Asher Techasaba to include Balas Chamesh, to include a garment with five corners. And the Gemara continues for Rabbi Shimon. Now, according to Rabbi Shimon, how is he going to learn this? How is he going to learn the five-cornered garment? May Asher Nafka. He just learns that only from the word Asher, and so therefore we're able to use Asher Techasaba essentially for two things. We can use it for this, and we can use it also for the inclusion of Suma, according to Rabbi Shimon. V'Rabbanan, and according to the Rabbanan, Asher lo mashmalahu, they say that Asher is not a word that can include anything. They don't understand that as an inclusion, and so therefore that essentially is the dispute between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabbanan hay urisam oso. Now the Rabbanan, this pasuk of urisam oso, Rabbi Shimon uses that as an exclusion of a ksus laila, but the Rabbanan, my avdilei, what do they do with this pasuk? Again, they don't exclude ksus laila, so what do the Rabbanan do with urisam oso? And the Gemara says, Mi boy luhu l'chidetanya, they need it for what's taught in the following brisa. Ureisam oso uzachartem. It says you'll see it and you'll remember. Ra mitzvah zu uzuchor mitzvah acheres. It means re'ei mitzvah zu, see this mitzvah, uzuchor mitzvah acheres, and then you'll remember another mitzvah hatuluyah, which is dependent upon it. This mitzvah will lead you to remember another mitzvah. Ve'ezu zu zu Kriyas Shema. And what mitzvah does tzitzis lead you to remember? It's the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema. Tetanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, this is the Mishnah Meseches Brachos. Me'imasai kornes Shema b'shachris. From when do we read Shema in the morning? Mishayakar ben tchelos lelavan. From the time that the person can recognize, distinguish between the blue threads and the white threads of tzitzis. And so you see, tzitzis is related to the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema. And the Gemara continues, V'tanya idach, and we learned in another brayso, so Urisa Moso is Zachartam. Again, it says Urisa Moso is Zachartam. You'll see the tzitzis and remember. Re'ei mitzvah zu zachor mitzvah acheres. See this mitzvah and remember another mitzvah hasmuchala, which is nearby in the pasuk in the Torah. Ve'ezu zu, and what mitzvah are we remembering? This is zu mitzvahs kilayim. This refers to the mitzvah of kilayim. T'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, Losil b'shadnes semer upishtim yachtov gedilim tasalach. First, the pasuk talks about Losil b'shadnes, don't wear shatnes, and then it talks about gedilim tasalach. It talks about tzitzis, and so therefore tzitzis leads one to remember this mitzvah of kilayim, the mitzvah of shatnes. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Yidach, we learned in another brayso, Urisa Moso is Zachartam is called mitzvahs Hashem. It says you'll see it, and you'll remember all the mitzvahs Hashem. Kevon sheneschayev adam b'mitzvah zu. Once a person is obligated in this mitzvah of tzitzis, neschayev b'chol mitzvahs kulan. Then he's chayev in all mitzvahs. And Rashi explains, Rashi gives two explanations of this. Kevon deneschayev b'mitzvah zu, sheheyer hayom, meaning when it becomes light outside, when it's the daytime, neschayev b'chol mitzvahs, then you're chayev in all mitzvahs. Tzitzis is a mitzvah during the daytime. This is according to Rabbi Shimon, and once daytime arrives, all the mitzvahs happen. The rov mitzvahs no hagas b'yom. Most mitzvahs they apply during the day. For Rabbi Shimon, according to this, the brayso is following Rabbi Shimon. Lishna Achrina Rashi says another explanation of this line in the brayso, Kevon deneschayev b'mitzvah zu, means as follows: Kevon sheneschayev adam shehigia lechlal mitzvah. Once a person is chayev, meaning he's come into the category, he's arrived in the category of being obligated in mitzvahs. Dahainu yud gimel shana, meaning to say he reaches 13 years old for a boy. Neschayev b'chol mitzvahs, and then he's chayev in all mitzvahs. Ulahachi asa ikar milsa, and it's for this the main thing that it's coming for. And the Gemara continues and says, as Rashi just noted, for Rabbi Shimon, this brayso is following Rabbi Shimon. To Yomar mitzvah sasei shazman grama, he who says that the mitzvah of tzitzis is a mitzvah sasei shazman grama, it is a time-bound positive commandment. And Rashi explains for Rabbi Shimon, we already explained according to the first explanation of Rashi that it's during the daytime. Kevin the neschayev b'mitzvah zu sheheyer hayom. That obviously follows Rabbi Shimon. When the daytime arrives, all of the mitzvahs. What about according to the second explanation of Rashi that when a person reaches bar mitzvah, when a person is 13 and chayev and tzitzis, he's chayev in all mitzvahs? Why does that have to be Rabbi Shimon? Says Rashi for Rabbi Shimon, it's Rabbi Shimon to poter b'noshim, meaning it's Rabbi Shimon who exempts women from the mitzvah of tzitzis. The rabbanon, because if we're following the rabbanon, ha'ikon noshim chayavos bo peturos mikama mitzvahs. You wouldn't say that once a woman is chayev in tzitzis, she's chayev in all the mitzvahs, because women are exempt from many mitzvahs, and so therefore the brayso is again following Rabbi Shimon. And the Gemara continues, Tanya idach, we learned in another brayso, Re'isam also is zachartam is called mitzvahs Hashem. It says you'll see the tzitzis and remember all the mitzvahs. Shkula mitzvah zu keneged kol ha-mitzvahs kula, and this mitzvah of tzitzis is equal to all of the mitzvahs. V'tanya idach, and we learned in another brayso, Re'isam also is zachartam v'asisam. It says you'll see, you'll remember, you'll do. The idea is re'iyah meviyah lidei zechira, seeing that brings a person to remembering, and zechira meviyah lidei asi, and then remembering that brings a person to doing. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, and Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, Kol hazorez b'mitzvah zu, anyone who's careful about this mitzvah, zochel mekabel pnei shchina, he's going to merit to receive the shchina. Ksiv hach, it's written over here, or isam oso, it uses the word oso by tzitzis, or ksiv hasam, and it's written over there as Hashem elokecha tira v'oso savod, it also uses the word oso in talking about as Hashem elokecha tira, fear Hashem. That's the idea of mekabel pnei shchina, and so therefore again you see that the mitzvah of tzitzis, anyone who's zorez in the mitzvah of tzitzis is going to be mekabel pnei shchina. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabban, and the sages taught in the Brayso, Chaviv in Yisrael, Klal Yisrael is beloved, Shesivavon HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'mitzvahs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu surrounded them in mitzvahs. Tefillin b'rashei, and there's tefillin on their heads, Utfillin b'zrosein, and there's tefillin on their arms, V'tzitzis b'vigdein, and there's tzitzis on their garments, Umezuzah lepischein, and there's a mezuzah by their entrances. V'alein Omar David, it's about them that David HaMelech says, Sheva b'yom hilalticha al mishpatei tzidkecha. The idea of Sheva over here, 7, we listed over here 7 mitzvahs that they're surrounded by, because again we have the mitzvah of mezuzah counts as 1, and tzitzis counts as 4 for the 4 corners of the garment, and then you have the tefillin shel yad and the tefillin shel rosh, that's another 2, and so the total comes out to be 7. Uveshosh and nichnas David lebeis hamerchatz, and the brayso continues, at the time that David HaMelech entered the bathhouse, v'ra atzmo omed orum, and he saw himself standing naked. Amar, he said, said, Oily, woe is to me, she'emod arum, below mitzvah, that I should stand naked with no mitzvahs. V'kevan shenizkar b'mila shebevasaru, but then when he remembered the bris milah in his flesh, nisyash v'daito, so then his mind was set at ease. And le'achar sheyatza, after he left there, Amar Oleh Ashira, he said a song over it, shenemar, as it says, Lam Natseach al Hashminis, Mizmor LeDavid, it says al Hashminis over here, and that's a reference to bris milah. Al milah, that's a reference to milah, shenitana b'shmini, which is given on the 8th day. And the Brisa continues, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Kol sheyesh lo tefillin barosho, u'tefillin bezroho, v'tzitzis bevigdo, mezuzah bepischo, anyone who has tefillin on his head, and tefillin on his arm, and tzitzis on his garment, and mezuzah at his entrance, hakol bechizuk, shelo yechda, that is all a strength, that he is not going to sin, shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, v'hachut ha-meshulash, the cord that is 3 strong, lo b'mehera yinotek, it doesn't break, and the idea over here is 3, because tefillin is 1, tzitzis is 2, and mezuzah is 3. V'yomer, and it also says, Chona malach Hashem saviv lireya v'yechaltzeim. And Rashi explains the reference of the pasuk Saviv Lireyav, again, the Malach camps surrounding those who fear him, Ha'osem mitzvos, meaning those who do mitzvos, v'yechalsem michet, he delivers them from sin, es hatzadikim, those who are the tzadikim. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Hayer Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir would say, Manishtana tchelas mikol mine tzevonin, why is tchelas different from all colors? Why specifically the color of tchelas, the color of blue? Mibnei tchelas doma liyam, because tchelas is similar to the sea, v'yam doma l'rakia, and the sea is similar to the firmament, to the sky, urakia l'kisei hakavod, and the rakia is similar to the kisei hakavod, the throne of glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, v'sachas raglav kemasei livnas hasapir, uche'etzam hashamayim lotoar, it talks about the shamayim, and it talks about sapphire, that color. Uchsiv, it's also written Kamare Evan Sapir, again like the sapphire stone. Demus Kisei, that's the demus of the Kisei of the throne. And the Gemara continues, Tanya will learn in a Brisa, Hayer Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir would say, Gadol onsho shel lavon yoser me'onsho shel tchelas, the punishment for neglecting the white strings is actually greater than the punishment for neglecting the blue strings that are part of the mitzvah. Mashal l'mah hadover dom, and what is this similar to? What's it compared to? L'melech basar v'dam, to a king of flesh and blood. Sha'amar l'shnei avadav, he speaks, he says to his 2 servants, La'echad amar, to one he says, Haveli chosam shel tit, bring me the seal that's made of clay. U'li'echad amar, and the other one he says, Haveli chosam shel zav, bring me that seal, that signet that's made of gold. U'pashu shneim, and they both neglect to do what they're supposed to do. V'lo heviu, they don't bring what they're supposed to bring. So Eza mehen onsho meruba, which one is going to get a greater punishment? Haveyomer zeh sha'amar lo, it's obvious that it's the one who he said to him, Haveli chosam shel tit, that you should bring me the chosam shel tit. V'lo hevi, he didn't bring it. That was so easy to bring as compared to gold, and so therefore the same thing by the white strings, those are far easier than the blue ones, and therefore someone who neglects that part of the mitzvah, it is a greater punishment. And the Gemara continues, Tanya was taught in a Brisa, Hayer Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir would say, Chayiv adam levorech meya brachos b'chol yom, a person is obligated to make 100 blessings, 100 brachos every day. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, V'yata Yisrael mo Hashem elokecha shoel me'imach. We understand the word mo to be like meya, 100. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks of you. And the Gemara continues, Rav Chia b'rei Rav Avia b'Shabso v'yomei tavi, Rav Chia b'rei Rav Avia on Shabbos and on Yontiv, when there are less blessings, less brachos to fill the quota of 100. So Tarach, he took the extra effort to memali lahu, and he would make sure to fill the quota of brachos, besparmiki, with besamim, with spices, umigdi, and with sweet fruits, and he used those to complete the 100 brachos. And the Gemara continues, Tanya was taught in a Brisa, Hayer Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir would say, Chayiv adam levarech shalosh brachos b'chol yom, a person needs to make 3 brachos every day, Elohein, and they are the following brachos, Sha'aso'ani Yisrael, that he made me Yisrael, he made me a Jew, Shalo aso'ani Isha, that he did not make me an Isha, he did not make me a woman, Shalo aso'ani Bor, that he did not make me a Bor, he did not make me an ignoramus, Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Sha'amei livrei dahavika mevarech, Rav Acha bar Yaakov heard his son, that he was making the following bracha, Shalo asani Bor, that he didn't make me a Bor, he didn't make me an ignoramus. Amar Lei said to him, Kuli hai nam, he said, to that extent you have to go so far and make such a bracha. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lei, so his son, the son of Rav Acha bar Yaakov, said back to him, V'yela mai mevarech, what's the alternative? What other bracha should be made? Shalo asani ovid, should it be the bracha that I wasn't made a slave? Hainu Isha, isn't that exactly the same as the Shalo asani Isha? And the Gemara continues and answers, Eved, no, with regards to a slave. And Rashi explains, Kuli Hainami, again, Rav Acha Bar Yaakov said to his son, you have to go to such an extent, to Mishabeches Nafshach De'inach Amoretz, you're making a bracha and praising yourself that you're not an Amoretz, that you're not a fool. Lish Nachrin, another explanation, Kuli Hainami, you're going to go so far, Bishlama Ovid Kochavim V'isha, I understand you make a bracha that the person's not an Ovid Kochavim, that he's not an Isha, Hoel V'lo B'nei Mitzvah Ninu, these are people that are not obligated in mitzvah, so Shaper Mivoreches, it makes sense to make such a bracha. Elabor, but to make a bracha that you're not a bor, bar mitzvah, but a bor still is able to do mitzvahs, he's obligated in mitzvahs, so that bracha doesn't make sense. And so Elamai Mevarech, so the son responded, well, what should be the bracha? Lahashlim Gimel brachas Rabbi Meir. What should be that third bracha to complete the three brachas of Rabbi Meir? And if you're going to say it's Shelo Asani Oved, so Hainu Isha, that's the same as Isha. The Isha Nami, Shifcha Lebala Ke'eved L'Rabu, a woman also is a Shifcha to her husband, she's like a maidservant to her husband, that's just like a slave to the master. That's one explanation of what the question was. Lishna Achrin, another explanation of why Hainu Isha, why is that the same as the bracha about a woman? Hainu Isha means that that's the same as a woman. Delanyan mitzvahs Isha v'Eved Shavin, because as far as mitzvahs, a woman and an Eved, a woman and a slave are equal in mitzvahs. The Gamrin and Law, that's learned out of Gzer Shava of Law. They are both not obligated in mitzvahs Aseh, Shahazman Grama, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Dalid Amud Aleph.